Hey guys, welcome to the Microsoft 365 Community Conference sponsored webinar series. To those of you who didn't know me, I'm Ella Fernandez, Head of Connections at BTechly, and I'm delighted to present our sponsor for today, Accenture and Avanade. Our session today highlights how to go from 0 to 700K scaling Copilot adoption across a global enterprise. But before we get started, just a few reminders. Our live stream on social platforms is just for 20 minutes preview. So to watch the full session, click the link in the chat, enter your business email address, or simply scan the QR code on your screen. Join us for the Microsoft 365 Community Conference 2027 happening May 4th through 6th in Las Vegas. Register by scanning the QR code on the screen or visit nextgen365events.com. Use the discount code A500 to save $500 off on your registration. And of course, please like, subscribe, and follow both BTechly and the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. Without further ado, let's enjoy today's learning session.
Hey everybody, how are we doing? As mentioned, we'll be talking through our Copilot journey. Up the slides right now. Okay, so we'll be talking through from 0 to 700,000 plus, scaling Copilot adoption across a global enterprise. We'll get into the agenda in just a second, but we wanted to launch a quick poll to understand when the last time you used Microsoft 365 Copilot was. So if you wouldn't mind letting us know, you can enter the number, I believe, in the comments, and it should tally. We should see it live. Using it now today, that's 100%. That feels like one person. Maybe, maybe others get it though. We'll just give it a couple more seconds here. But that's fantastic news because we're here to talk about Copilot. I had a joke prepped for that. I've never used it, but I don't get to tell it. So, all right, should we jump into the agenda? Okay, perfect. Well, actually, before the agenda, we should meet the three of us here. So my name is Joshua Edney. I've been with Accenture for, I believe, 18 years now. I've had a wide array of roles over my time here. Right now, I'm a senior manager in business architecture and transformation, and I'm the program lead for our M365 Copilot here at Accenture. Natalie and Satish will introduce themselves, but their counterparts in Journey and Change and Platform. Go ahead, Natalie.
Hi, thanks, Joshua. Natalie Visser here, and really, really thrilled to be here today to share a bit of our Copilot journey at Accenture and Avanade. My role is specifically the Accenture Copilot Change Lead. I help people learn and understand how and why to use Copilot in their daily work. I've been with Accenture for 20 years, and I am a senior manager in our internal IT organization. Satish, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Joshua. Thanks, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Satish Kumar. I'm a portfolio lead for Unified Collaboration Platform, responsible for running Microsoft Teams, Viva Engage, and multiple collaboration platform. I'm also leading M365 Copilot platform side and working very closely with Joshua and Natalie to run that. My team is responsible more on the technical side, running the technical infrastructure, agent enablement, security posture, governance for all the collaboration application, and responsible to run environment smoothly, the scale which you're going to learn very soon. Thanks. Back to you, Joshua.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's dive into our agenda. I promised it before, but we'll do it now. So we'll talk about our overall pilot approach. That'll include our roadmap as we scale to 700,000 plus people here at Accenture. We'll also talk about agents and how we deal with agents. Satish will help out with that. Then Natalie's going to take us through our change journey and how we fuel adoption and build Copilot habits. Then we'll get into some metrics. So we'll get to see usage across our global implementation here at Accenture. and then we'll all talk about our learnings in what's next. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Okay, our M365 Copilot approach. So before we get to the roadmap and agents and change, just taking a step back here to ask why M365 Copilot. So why do we care, right? So Accenture has been very public in suggesting that we want to become an AI-focused company. We have a close relationship with Microsoft. Not only do we implement things like Copilot, but we also do lots of other activities with Microsoft, partner with them in various ways. And we have an expansive Microsoft 365 footprint, which I've heard is the largest commercial implementation in the world. So if we flip to the next slide, we can take a quick look at that. So this is our Microsoft 365 footprint, not quite our Copilot one yet, but we have 809,000 active users of Teams, just south of 600,000 Teams. We have 842,000 mailboxes. From a Viva Engage perspective, we have 9,000 communities. We get 58,000 posts a month. We have 55 million people reading those 58,000 posts a month. And something we're very proud of here is we have 640,000 members of our M365 Copilot community. So given that data, it's kind of a no-brainer that our people are going to find value in Copilot, given Copilot is hooked directly into these services. So so now that we know the why, let's go ahead and jump into our roadmap. So we started our journey about 3 years ago. Even before that 300 that you see here, we were in the Compass program with Microsoft, so being able to provide early feedback to the product. Fun fact, Satish, who's going to present agents here in a couple of minutes, was, I believe, the first user at Accenture, so patient zero. We'll hear from him in a little while. And then we scaled, of course, 2.5, 3 years later to our 700,000 plus. There are multiple considerations at each phase here, and we'll take a quick look at each one of these. So for 300 users, this release was our first release, and it was primarily to very senior leaders here at Accenture, along with people who had direct go-to-market type opportunities. From a program perspective, our focus was definitely like, how do we teach people how to responsibly use the tool, because it's brand new, we haven't seen it before. How do we, from a corporate perspective, start to teach people how to use the tool from a responsible, in compliance with responsible use? So what we did is we partnered with Accenture Legal and our Accenture Information Security teams to develop guardrails relative to responsible use. We then gave that to those 300 people, and that was sufficient for the population. That carried along to 2,500 users. The difference from a user population, though, is we started to give Copilot to teams, so like different groups, and starting to assess, does a particular team get value out of Copilot if we give them all licenses? From a governance perspective, as I just mentioned, we were still leveraging our guardrails that we put together collectively with InfoSec and Accenture's Legal. When we started talking about the jump to 20,000, our footprint is getting significantly larger. I think our information security lead said that that's the size of a small city. So we weren't comfortable leveraging just guardrails at the time. And from an InfoSec perspective, we really wanted to get into permissions management and ensuring that Copilot does a great job of finding things. So if you tell Copilot to go find me XYZ, it presumably is going to go do that. And in the process, it might pull back content that you maybe shouldn't have access to. Maybe somebody put a file in a folder that was widely shared, or, there are a million different ways to do this, but essentially misgoverned permissions could be a security issue. So we did a lot of work with Accenture Legal around that. In order to scale to 20,000, we implemented a tool that scanned our environment and looked for overshared deliverables. We followed up with people on those overshared deliverables. And then from a sort of a responsible use Accenture Legal perspective, we put in place a media exchange training, followed with a Microsoft form that people had to attest that they took the training to be able to go ahead and get a Copilot license. So you can see there's increasing rigor as we go here. When we made the jump to 100,000, it was more of the same. We continued doing the scanning activities. The wrinkle there is we identified data governors in each of our corporate functions that would have to attest that from a permissions management perspective, they were covered, or they're comfortable with their area. Responsible use, also a little bit more rigor applied there. We went from what was at the time a media exchange video to being formally put in our LMS. along with a test, and our users would have to take that formal training and pass the test to be able to get a Copilot license. As we continued, we went to 200,000 users, then to 700,000 users, and it was very deliberate and a risk-based approach. If we flip to the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about the blockers. So transcriptions. Historically, we don't have transcriptions available here at Accenture, but we did when Copilot first started. So one of our concerns there was, how do we, transcriptions obviously come with risk. So how do we mitigate that risk? We worked with Microsoft, and Microsoft had implemented Copilot without transcriptions. So the ability to work within, to use Copilot within a meeting, but it doesn't save you an artifact afterwards. So that's what we put in place, and Microsoft had delivered that, I think, right before our 20,000 release. From a data governance perspective, I talked a little bit about that. We created a permissions management tool. We followed up with individuals. We implemented corporate function data governors, that sort of thing. So lots of things along our journey there. And then as we get into responsible use, we went from our guardrails that were used to govern us at a couple hundred to formal training in our LMS that is used to govern us, at 100,000. So again, increasing rigor. From a Works Council perspective, the trick there was really how do we get access to key Works Council members such that they can start playing with Copilot, and we can have discussions early on rather than it going through what would be the more formal. Well, it did go through a formal Works Council process, but how do we get people access to the tool so we're having conversations early on and they're approving the use of M365 Copilot? So this is a whole, again, transcriptions. Microsoft helped out with that and released Copilot without transcriptions, and then the rest of it we kind of tackled ourselves as we went. So lots of blockers, lots of different phases of accomplishments relative to each of these at any given time, but certainly stuff we had to work through. If we flip to the next slide. I'm talking a lot about governance and responsible use and those sorts of things, but there's also a huge journey and change component here that Natalie's going to dive deeper into in a little bit. But essentially, this is how we handle Gen AI, this is how we handle change from an overall Gen AI perspective, not specific to Copilot, but something we leveraged during our Copilot rollout. So number one is really around building skills and experimentation. So how does an end user start to ask Copilot questions? How does an end user start to trust Copilot or other Gen AI technologies? And then number two is really getting into how do we make Gen AI technologies part of our daily experience? If we want to go ahead and click to the rest of the stairs here, we go to number three, which is getting into more role and team adoption of generative AI. So how do teams use it? And then you get into process optimization and process reinvention, which is really around how do business units use it or how do organizations use it. And like I said, Natalie's going to give us a much deeper dive into that coming up very soon. So looking forward to that. But before we get there, I'll turn it over to Satish, who's going to talk about our agent posture here at Accenture.
Okay. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you for covering and start that part. So I will start, and my focus is more on agent. So everyone, for most of the time when we start hearing and when we hear the Copilot, the first thing come in mind, chat experience, which cover our summarizing the email, drafting document, you must be using in the meetings, for getting that if you miss some meeting, catching up with that meeting, or going through documentation, which is absolutely very powerful things. And when it started, it was a big change the way we work, and we started using this on daily basis, and it helped a lot. However, we are just going to talk, and I'm going to take you one step more ahead of this, and that's where it comes about agent. And this is happening like what we are working today, and it's a continuous journey. It's in a fundamental shift in that our Copilot platform, and we are expanding our footprint with that Microsoft pre-built agents, which are a lot of powerful agents, which is there with some custom agents, which is going to be our continuous journey. So for first thing about the pre-built agent, Microsoft introduced and keep adding a lot of powerful ready-made agent which is ready to use. Just go through that some of that enablement process, and it's there. You can use it on day-to-day basis. They're not just like a generic chatbots. It's more than that, built on very specialized skill, specialized agents for a specific purpose. For example, a researcher, an analyst, project manager, prompt coach. You take a name, all these are for a specific use case. Each one is powered with some specific AI model with domain specific experience, or just take them as a digital specialist who is going to work along with your day-to-day work. In Accenture, we have been actively enabling these agents, not as a pilot, not as an experiment, but as a core part of our productivity strategy. We are giving this in the hand of our end user. They are going to use and they are using on day-to-day basis. The goal here is put this agent directly into the work, into our flow of the work. So all the Accenture employees who has a Copilot license enabled, they can use this on the day-to-day basis, and it as an intelligent as assistant for their day-to-day work. 700,000 plus users, which we are talking. It's available and it's enabled for them. Taking further down, can we just switch to the next slide? So next part which we are looking in the agent is the frontier capabilities. This is as an early preview. What if you have a background of Teams, you must be heard about the ring. In the Office side, we heard about the channel. In Copilot, it's a frontier. It's a early place where you can get access of the agents or any new features coming as early as you can, and this is very much on invitation basis, and Accenture is participating in frontier very actively. We position ourselves as an early adopter for all this new technology, new changes coming. It helps us to build our trust, get the hands on before it go to the GA or larger crowd. It's helped us to build our credibility with the client as well. And the big benefit which we are assuming from this is the early access, which help us to get that what's coming, what is going to be required to get this enabled. It helps us also to talk with the Microsoft product team, give them feedback, get those changes done early. Once it's in the GA, it's not easy to get some change done. It also allow us to evaluate the risk, get it ready for the broader rollout. So by the time it's coming to GA, we are all ready. If we need to update our governance posture, if we need to update any tool, it's all help as a part of Frontier. And we are actively, like we are heavily dependent on this Frontier program. We have our tech team who is part of the Frontier program, who provide the feedback. We work with our change team, we work with our security, governance, all the internal team during this phase. And this help us at very effective way to make sure that, okay, how we are going to posture it before we go to get that ready for the production in the production deployment. The other big thing for the frontier that you can control this, you can deploy this in the way you want, you can enable this as a small group, you can expand that based on that your roles responsibility that different agent coming. The way we are taking approach, multiple agents are currently in the frontier, features are in frontier. If we need to enable some of the agents for a specific group, we do that way. We control, enable, we get that feedback from not only technical team, security, governance team, but also from business. So that help us to set and provide a valuable feedback to the Microsoft to get those functionality features added while it's under the review and the development phase. Can we go next slide? Okay, so next part is that enablement approach. As we all who are working in IT, they all know that technology is not the tough, hardest part. The governance and that how you're going to control those features, that's the tough part. So to overcome this part, we built a very structured our process repeatable enablement framework to make sure that we are not missing anything, same time we are not delaying anything, same time we are covering all our parts. So we approach all this enablement process in this four phase: information, evaluation, governance, and then deployment. So in the very first phase, when we're looking for the information, a lot of changes coming. You all know, and I don't need to repeat that. Every day is something changing. Some way you will learn from that roadmap, from Master Center Post, from that TAP program, from Frontier program. So these are the all different source of information where we learn about that new things. We put that into our backlog, and backlog is like Accenture, our internal process. You can manage whatever way you want to manage, and from there we start looking that okay, this is something new came, what we need to do, how we need to take it, how we are going to approach it. We go in that evaluation phase. There we enable that our frontier group. We do that some risk pre-assessment questionnaire. We work with Microsoft. We take their help to complete that, and then we do that internal review to determine that okay, is it high risk or low risk component. Depends on that evaluation, we put that into our fast track criteria, or we put that in detailed review. Like for example, if you see under fast track, like coaches and researcher, analyst, when these are things come, or that power Word, Excel, PowerPoint agents, because we're already using MS Office, so it's low risk profile agent. We put them into fast track criteria. We get that quick approval. We enable that and deploy it globally. When it goes to that high risk, that goes through the very detailed review, which required like governance, legal, security, infosec, all those components we go in very detail. And based on that assessment, it takes extra time to enable it. Like for example, the very one I will pick it is cowork, which is currently in our review process. Depends on that nature of work it does. It's take action against like in behalf of user. So we need to make sure that we are not missing those component. We do all those kind of assessment before we start deploying that. Overall, this whole approach, which we take that from, for example, if we need to deploy this and we get that approval from legal, because it touching that some PI data, all those components we covered in the governance factor before we get that enabled to the larger group. Before the during that phase, we work with our frontier group to collect all those feedback, provide the data to Microsoft or our internal governance team to get that ready for that deployment. Once we pass this phase, we want to enable this and we want to enable with confidence. So our model is we do that whole review. Once we reach to that, enable this with full confidence, with nothing missing. At the same time, we try to expedite as much as we can. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so now this other part is coming, that how we are extending this Copilot agent concept. So we always talk like, okay, we have an agent coming from Microsoft, we can use it, but how we can build our own agent? Because a lot of data source what we have, users are Accenture, our user base, our business want to build their own agent, and we have created some kind of guidance for them that yeah, you can do that. We have a multiple path, and those multiple path are depends on that what your skill. If you want to do something which is very kind of no code pro code, and if you want to start with the very simple way, you can start with that agent builder, which is available in Copilot chat. You can go in the SharePoint. In the middle, if you have for pro code option, if you have a developer, if you have a skill, you want to call some API, you want to do that through some a specific data source, you can go with that Visual Studio. Both these options are there. Depends what you want, what is the business requirement. Based on that scale, based on that, like if you want to scale an agent which is going for the whole organization, you may want to explore that pro code option. uh, Considering that performance, considering the load on that application, what all we are getting, we just go on that path. If it is a very simple agent for your team, for yourself all, you can use that Copilot agent builder, which is available in the Copilot chat. Easy, no code required, no specific skill required. You can just put that data or pointer what you want, and it will help you to create that. At the same time, if you are looking for some specific for that using the Copilot Studio, we offer that as well. It's not available for whole Accenture. It is still under review because of some platform governance component, but it is there. We are still evaluating. This is another option. You can use this for that some execute workflows, some run some external services, call some API. This all, but it's required some additional review. The last but not least, if you want to add some custom engine for the building agent, which has a full control, different AI models, still governance is required. We need to go through that, all the governance process before it will get approved and we allow you to use it. But we offer a spectrum of option to our end user from a no code to full code while ensuring that every path has to go through that governance guardrail. We do not want to get them enable, just use that and then start feeling something sorry or some miss the governance factor. All the options are there. You need to go through the governance, whatever meet your business requirement or your team's requirement, you can use it. However, always keep that point. Governance is that most important for that when you are building agent because you don't want to expose any data which is not supposed to be exposed. With that, Natalie, I will hand over to you to talk about our adoption because all this work we did, what Joshua talk, I talk, Natalie is that one who helping us to give this in the hand of the users and make it more effective way, use it in an effective way. So over to you, Natalie.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Satish. Appreciate that. It's always so fascinating to me to hear how and know how we are enabling our people with a roadmap and our agents. And in a minute here, I'll help bring it to the people side of things. Before I do, there was a question that came in through the chat that I'm going to pause and ask Joshua. This came in during your section. So I'll just ask you to, I'll read the question and ask you to answer it. On the roadmap specifically, do the numbers that you spoke to reflect users with an M365 Copilot license? Or do they include users with access to Copilot through, say, your EA, but without the premium features that require the full license?
No, that's a great question. That number is specific to the number of people we have licensed with the premium features that are given via the M365 Copilot license here at Accenture. So the 700,000 plus, it's really around 740. Those are all licensed M365 Copilot users.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
And check this out. There's a question for you, but I bet you're going to get to it as we go.
Okay, sounds good. I do see the question about consistent user adoption and measurable productivity gains. We are going to get to that. So I will get to that. And if I don't cover all of the question, please post it again and make sure that I address what you were hoping I covered there. Okay, so now we are going to shift from the technical and enablement to the people. Shifting to people knowing about the technology, using it, and then really adopting it in how they build a habit. So how do we help people drive the behavior and embed the use of M365 Copilot in their day-to-day work so that they say at the end, you know what, using Copilot as my AI assistant or as an AI assistant that I use in my work is just the way that I do things. So it becomes a natural way that people flow their day-to-day work. Okay, so let's talk about how to build Copilot habits and some very specific tactics that we use at Accenture and we have used over time as we've rolled out Copilot to our employees. All right, so we'll talk about this and first talk about how this is really grounded in behavioral science. So our change strategies are rooted in how people work, how people think, how people learn, so that they can truly adapt, learn, and thrive. And this applies to how we do not only Copilot adoption and enablement, but also other AI tools and technology at Accenture. So it's grounded in these three things. First is the mindset. So the mindset of motivating people to adopt an AI first mindset, embedding it into their daily work, and asking the question, why? Why would I need to change my daily work to think to use Copilot first? The second one is behaviors. So when people are doing something at work, standard things that they do, when would I use this in my work? So the second question is when. And then the third is skills, rooted in skills. What are those key foundational skills that people need to learn to truly maximize the value and reinvent the way that their work gets done? So why in the mindsets, when in the behaviors, and how in those daily skills that they need to learn. So we're shifting from what can Copilot do to what does work look like with Copilot? All right, so now let's click into behaviors specifically. So the behaviors to truly unlock Copilot's full potential. Since that very beginning of the journey that Joshua and Satish were talking about 2.5 years ago, we knew that we needed to root in behaviors. And what do we mean by this? The when, in terms of the daily things that people do. So we know that at our company, people generally do these things. They summarize, they ideate, they brainstorm, they analyze different types of information. They need assistance in things, and then they also do research. So generally speaking, all of our people across roles and functions do these things. So we thought, okay, how do we package up how people learn, become aware of, and then truly embed the use of Copilot in their work in these behaviors? So shifting from I manually do these things, or I generate ideas independently, or I perform some things solo, to thinking about Copilot as a colleague, as a digital assistant. So I'm summarizing, I'm delegating tasks with Copilot. I am co-creating with Copilot as a thought partner. I am analyzing with Copilot, and Copilot gives me a really great start at some deep insights. I need assistance. So before I do anything, how can Copilot assist me in this work? And through all of this, and through looking at behaviors, the human is in the lead. They're in the lead of their use of Copilot and thinking about how might Copilot help me in the next task that I will do in my work. Okay, so talked about our mindsets, behaviors, and skills, talked about how we really, to unlock Copilot's value, we talk about shifting behaviors in the activities people do day to day, in the building of the Copilot habit. And now you're thinking, well, what does that look like in terms of tactics? How do I really make this happen in my organization? So we bring that strategy and those mindsets, behaviors, and skills and embed them into tactics that bring those to life at every stage of our transformation. Whether we were at the very beginning of our early access program with our senior most leaders getting access to Copilot, through to over 700,000 of our Accenture and Avanade employees getting Copilot. We think of these tactics that bring through these mindsets, behaviors, and skills to life as these 4 pillars: communications, learning, measurement, and adoption. I'll touch on just a few of these to help make it practical and tactical and come to life for you. So in communications, we very actively use our internal social community, which we use Viva Engage, the Microsoft Viva Engage product, and have continuous flow of information. We have updates, we have news, we have tips, we have learning opportunities, and we have people give stories to inspire others to build their Copilot habits. And we start small with very bite-sized learning and information so that we encourage people to build that mindset and say, it's easy, just get started. You're not sure? Just ask Copilot if it can help you do something. So we start with very small prompts according to those behaviors, and we say, try this. And then they'll get that reward and response and then say, ooh, that was great. Let me do some more and try again and again and again. And then once that initial experimentation that Joshua showed at the beginning breaks through, then they start to say, ooh, how can I embed this in my day-to-day productivity? And then how can I start to work with my team to look at our workflows and our end-to-end processes to truly optimize and then reinvent what we're doing with Copilot? Okay, so communications, very actively using our community. We also truly like to spotlight our early adopters. We have a very active champion network of our early adopters who are within teams, in locations and regions, and we like to spotlight them to inspire others to simply do the same as them or try it out, give it a go. Just get started. So for some other tactics, learning, we have very specifically led with use and scenario-based learning sessions. We know that we want people to know how to use Copilot in their flow of daily work. So we lead all of it with practical use case and scenario-based learning sessions. And we offer live sessions weekly across time zones so that people can get started. And then immediately afterwards, they know, I can use those 3 things, 4 things, however many things in my day-to-day work. Again, rooted back into those behaviors. I now know how Copilot can assist me, for example. Another one that is super valuable and I can't say enough about is our leadership enablement. We have led with our leaders making sure they are the role models in learning, and they learn first and they learn often. And then we ask them and encourage them to share those learnings with others in very simple bite-sized tips. So we ask our leaders, start your meeting with 5 minutes of a tip or trick or amazing aha moment and demo it. Show your team how you did that. No more than 5 minutes, one quick tip, and ask them then to go share that with their teams. Next meeting, ask one of them to come and bring their own. So just 5-minute tips to show people as a leader that you're leading by example with AI and with Copilot encourages them, I can easily do the same. And it provides them a safe space to do so. Okay, measurement. We will talk a bit more about measurement in a few minutes, but some key things I want to just talk about is we have a quarterly survey where we're asking people their perception and their sentiment of using Copilot. So we ask them questions, a series of questions to say and influence how we are going to continue driving our rollout and our adoption program. We also publish a monthly usage report for people to see and to see what the usage is amongst globally as well as within region or within certain countries. Okay, finally with adoption. I mentioned a change network. So we have scaled up a global change network, and this is truly how we can have the change stick with people because they know their peers, they know their leaders locally within their teams. We nurture that change network and we give them certain activation and onboarding and skilling so that they can feel empowered and have the tools and things that they need to go host sessions, do their own learnings, and share and cascade important communications to their peers. And then the last one I'll say is something we are gearing up to do another one of is a gamified camp experience. We know that people like to learn in fun and interactive ways. So we create an interactive learning environment over a series of weeks where we have different topics and challenges and fun quizzes for people to come and learn the topic and ask questions and also learn from each other. And we also like to do agent-a-thons where people can submit their own ideas and creative use cases to, again, inspire and engage their peers. Okay, so I'll go over a few of these specific tactics that we have found really important within our rollout and scaling is fueling adoption with targeted groups and advocates. So I mentioned our Change Champion Network. We've also had certain focus groups, so that there are certain functions that have certain use cases to accelerate adoption. And those groups can then share them with other colleagues and other groups. So larger groups that have the leaders that are on board, giving them high touch support and giving them the use cases so that they can then determine, okay, how do I make sure to drive that use and adoption, and then really optimize the way that my function is working with Copilot. Okay, the next one is the persona-driven guidance. We have worked across different, I'll call, roles and functions within our organization to create role-specific guidelines and benefits. So we'll say, let's just say a client account leader, for example. We know that they do the same certain subset of things, and they might have certain challenges in their day-to-day work. And we say, okay, with that, let's use a day in the life of that client account lead and help really show and document in a very simple way, how can Copilot assist them? How can Copilot help them ideate? How can Copilot help them drive those behaviors in their leadership role? And then finally, that change network. We have a global network of over 1,800 champions now who advocate for and are passionate as an extra thing that they do to drive adoption and learning within their functions. All right. Now, one thing we definitely have learned that we need to dive into in the adoption of Copilot is personalization. So personalizing it across different groups. So previously I showed you those tactics and those strategies that we used. And now this is how we do tailored enablement based on people's role and day-to-day responsibilities. So we have a set curriculum for each of these three groups. So for example, to enable leaders, we have customized sessions on how leaders learn and how leaders can use Copilot and get very quickly maximum value off of Copilot and using Copilot in their flow of work. And then for an account and group perspective, we know that accounts and groups have certain things that they need to do. What are the things that they do in their day-to-day work? We work with them and we provide an immersive and tailored engagement and learning experience so that we can say, for you as a group, these are the things you do day to day. And here's how in this use case scenario-based guidance, you can use it and start using it and then keep using it. So it builds that mastery and confidence with that group. And then finally, enterprise-wide. So we know that there are people across roles, across functions, and we host ongoing weekly sessions that people can attend live and ask questions and interaction. And we also have self-paced learning resources. So we have something for everyone in the way that they like to and need to learn in their day-to-day work and based on their learning style. So it gives people the flexibility to learn how they feel best, as well as to apply AI and Copilot in real work scenarios. Okay, I am going to move on to the next in leading with value and outcomes. So we went from the strategy to the tactics to some of diving into how we personalize adoption to now, what do we see? What are we living through this? What are we seeing? And I think this will start to answer the question, one of the questions in the chat. What are we living now as a result of that? So Joshua and Satish mentioned that we have now over 700,000 people with M365 Copilot as standard enterprise technology. Now, that was in the March timeframe, we jumped from 200,000 people at our company at Accenture with Copilot to over 700,000 people with Copilot. So now that we have 700,000 people, we have 67% of them as active users. And that equals over 22 million Copilot actions taken of those people. We still are very keen and conscious of seeing how those people, before we scaled to over 700,000, the cohort of 200,000 that we had for some time, how are they using Copilot in their day-to-day work? So we're continuing to look at how they're using it, and they're at 91%. And we are really excited and proud of that, because we know that people are starting to embed it into their flow of work and using it again and again. And we are seeing how Copilot is really driving reinvention and the future of work, improving our productivity, enhancing team collaboration, and really boosting that employee experience. So on the right is a bit of that quarterly survey I mentioned as one of the tactics that we do for measurement. This is one of our most recent surveys. We asked people, how would they feel if Copilot was gone? And 84% said they would miss it if they did not no longer had it. 97% said that they do complete tasks faster now that they're using Copilot. And then 53%, we're looking to hopefully have that continue to increase, are saying significant improvement in their productivity and efficiency. And we will continue to track and monitor those specific types of questions to see, are we able to continue to drive that behavior change and adoption. Okay, now I am going to pause first before we go to learning to see if there's any burning questions, or should we move to learnings and then ask for questions? I'll ask my colleagues here. Haven't seen them all in the chat.
I can go ahead and read a couple. There are some here. I think you well covered the one that we were supposed to. But if not, I think theory, if you wanted to get more specific, you're certainly welcome to. Satish, the next one's probably more for you. So the question is essentially, we can build and share agents with Agent Builder, but we're not publishing department and firm-wide agents through Copilot Studio, or have I misunderstood? So I think the question is, do we use Copilot Studio or are we publishing firm-wide agents? So two questions there.
Yeah, I was reading that question. Thank you, Joshua. So to answer on that, our primary focus currently on that agent builder in the M365 Copilot. As I mentioned in my slide, we are not stopping Copilot Studio, but because of some governance requirement and certain geography where we have a presence, we are still working on that. We are allowing Copilot Studio or agent built through Copilot Studio, but very controlled way. So short answer, yes, Copilot Studio, agent built through Copilot Studio is more controlled way. Agent builder is more easy as of now for the end user.
Perfect. And then organizationally, we are planning to release our first Accenture agent. We already have released an Accenture agent to the US. We're hoping to do that more globally here in the coming months.
Yep.
Next up, what governance, security, and compliance guardrails must be in place to safely scale Copilot across regions, business units, and data environments? So I can start that one, and I'll probably need some help from you, Satish. So when we did our Copilot rollout, we did lots of work around data governance and making sure permissions were applied correctly, such that Copilot didn't find documents that people shouldn't necessarily have access to, but do. And then in addition to that, we worked very closely with Accenture Legal on different requirements they had for us to be able to scale Copilot. So if we think back to our roadmap, at each point in that roadmap, there was some level of requirement that we had to meet from different people to be able to scale. So yes, absolutely. Now that we are scaled, though, as we think about going forward, I know that, and this is why I want to pull Satish in, I know that a lot of the work is going to the appropriate operations groups, whether it's SharePoint or Teams or whomever. So you could probably quickly weigh in on that.
Yeah, just to add on that, and thank you, Joshua, you covered that one, but just to a little bit expand within considering a time. Copilot doesn't expose or create any data problem. That's the basic theory which we follow. Copilot expose what the risk you have. So, and to implement Copilot safely, our first and the primary focus on the data governance. And that to prepare for that, like on the very first slide, as Joshua presented, we have like almost 600,000 teams. Means all those teams has behind SharePoint site. We have a regular SharePoint site. So permission model is a very important type of teams, public team or public SharePoint site. That's very important. So we work very extensively to manage the oversharing permission model, make sure that we don't have an unnecessary public team, because those are the data shared in those exposed by the or available to all Accenture employees. Because Copilot just is your delegate permission to run the query in behalf of you and pull the data. So even if you have access without Copilot, you may be not aware, but with Copilot, it's very easy to find. So we work very extensively on the data governance, local compliance, some certain countries, some different requirement. So we work with the worker, our legal team to help us on that. Again, our primary focus on data governance and the sharing permission.
Yep, awesome. Thanks for the additional context. I think we're going to go do, why don't we go ahead and do the lessons learned, and then we have a kind of a thank you slide that we can put up while we hit the rest of these questions. So we see the rest of these questions and we'll certainly get to them. But Natalie, if you wanted to pull back up the screen share, we can do the rest of the presentation.
Yes, I have the lessons learned slide up. There we go. Okay.
Okay, well, let's, so there's a lot of stuff here, but we'll cover maybe one or two of these. So Satish, the lesson learned that you wanted.
Yeah, I will pick that my favorite topic, governance. So this is our data governance, as I've talked earlier as well. So when we started our journey from the different stages, this is one thing which we learned, that how much work we need to do to get that effective rollout. We don't want to be go in the situation that we enable something and then we start struggling and we need to take a step back because of that data is exposed. So data governance is one of that point which was a super high priority for us on the different stages, and that include that our permission model, oversharing, that retention, all those factors we consider. We help our team with the team and help our users to identify that any site which is not required, site has oversharing, it's so had some content which is not supposed to be in the public site. So that's the data governance part was very important in our journey, and we highly recommend that for any successful deployment of Copilot, our primary focus should be on the data governance, because that will help you or that will cover a big way for your like easy rollout across that different geography. The one other thing which I will pick, that collaboration and with Microsoft, this is that one of the big advantages we always have, because our very close relationship with Microsoft, we learned the things what coming. We work with them to understand that how it is going to work, what we need to do to get us prepared. So that's the one of the biggest factor in our success as well, because many time when it's come to G and then you start learning, it take a lot of time to cover and make sure that your all the tools process updated. So early collaboration with Microsoft was super helpful for us.
Yep, those are awesome ones. And yes, we do have that relationship, which is fantastic. We'll switch over to Natalie. Would you pick one or two of these to highlight for the group here today?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, it's hard to pick. But I would say, okay, the two would be, the first is people need a little help to get started. We've learned that it's not just build it and they will come, or release it and they will come. People do need some hands-on learning, real world practical prompts, and for them to really understand how to embed it into their work to spark that confident usage. So that's first, people giving people the help that they need through learning resources, as well as through people who are here to say, I'm here to help you. So having those champions. The second is, I would say, leading by example. Leaders, unlike any technology before with AI, really model that usage. And by modeling, it's that they are leading with it, and they are talking about it, and they are using it and showing how they are using it. So I touched a bit on this and how leaders just show, here's how to get started. Here's my tip. Here's my aha moment of using Copilot. And those leaders setting the clear expectations with their teams of how they can use it and how they're in the lead of using it and how they can benefit from it.
Perfect. Yep, those are all awesome. In lieu of time, I'll just highlight one that I think everybody should definitely work on if they're not already, and that's perform early risk acceptance activities related to high risk capabilities. So transcriptions, we were discussing that right when Copilot came out. Like, what is our posture on transcriptions? Data governance. Satish talked a lot about that. Like, how do we make sure our data governance or our data estate is good enough for us to release Copilot and scale Copilot up to the numbers we have today. So I would definitely start looking at the riskier things that Copilot does. Cowork's a new one that we're starting to look at now, but definitely start to look at the riskier things Copilot does and get those conversations going across information security, legal, and of course other governing bodies you have. So I do want to get to some more questions. So why don't we go ahead and flip up the last slide here. So basically, this is a QR code. If you're interested in discussing M365 Copilot implementation in your organization, you can go ahead and scan that, and it'll take you to an Accenture and Avanade AI workforce page, and it just has a form you can complete, and presumably someone will get back to you. I'm sure they will. I'm kidding about that. But all right, let's do some more questions. So I think there are 3 more in the chat, and feel free to add if you have one out there and you're still here. What operating model enablement, change management, and support is required to move from pilot groups to enterprise-wide Copilot adoption at scale? So that's an interesting question. We didn't treat Copilot as like a pilot to scale transition. We were always in production, but with more of a disciplined operating model built on the phased enablement that we saw before, in conjunction with strong data governance, in real-time learning to manage risk as we scaled, rather than like a pilot and then production. It was kind of always in production. I don't know, Satish, we'll start with you if you have anything to add there, and then we'll go to Natalie.
No, that's exactly what we do. Like, we never develop this model as, okay, this is in pilot, and then we do the transition in the production for the even support team, not only the end user, but for support team as well. We just build that skill from the very first deployment, like very first pilot users in our support team as well. So it will be always going to be a smooth transition. We are not develop any model that, okay, pilot and then support. It's a learning in the pilot, and then it's going to be enabled. And in that phase, we just update all our documentation, either it's support document, user guide, all this thing. So it's always very smooth transition for us from that pilot to production.
Yep, perfect. And Natalie, anything to add to that one?
I think I would add, in addition, I mean, we all work very, very, very closely together. So from the beginning, having each of the components and including that change management from the beginning with the pilot groups and on through the scaling, and adapting as we go. Because as a team, we've been at this for some time and we're constantly learning. So having the mindset internally that we'll continue to adapt with what we need to and what we hear from people.
Perfect. All right, fantastic. The next one is probably mostly for Natalie. How do you define an active user? So probably relative to the numbers we shared a little bit earlier. Is it weekly or monthly? I know the answer, but
Great
but
question.
you
I
can
can
give
take
it.
it. We all know the answer. So for the purposes of what I was talking about earlier, we had active user as monthly active user. So someone has used Copilot and done an action with Copilot once or more in the month. That said, we also actively track weekly active usage. So using Copilot once or more within the week. So we track both. What you saw earlier on the slide was specifically monthly active usage.
Just to add on, just a slightly jump on that.
Yeah.
One more specific point, if someone and if Luke is interested for that, we pull this all the data through Microsoft Admin Console. So active users data from there. We don't create any kind of a separate matrix there. We just use that data, and that we provide to the change team to create our story around that. So source of data is Microsoft Admin Console, and then we just use that data with our internal data source to measure it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Last up, probably we'll go back to Natalie. So this is the last question. If people have questions, now's the time to get them in. But last up, probably going back to Natalie again. So on surveys, what kind of responses do you expect from users? I imagine they're asking if we expect glowing responses or not.
So we, for the quarterly surveys that we send out, we send it to everyone who is licensed, and based on that number, we want to get back the number that is statistically significant. So there is a calculation that we have that shows, okay, if we have X number of people, then to be shown as statistically significant in terms of our results population, we want to get back that number, that amount. So for our last survey, we wanted to have, it was a survey to around 200,000 people, and we wanted to get at least 3,500 responses for that statistical significance. So we encourage people to complete it, and we know that it's completely optional, but that hopefully answers your question.
Okay, we're at time. So I don't know, Natalie or Satish, did you have any parting thoughts? I don't, but thank you to everybody who attended. But Satish, anything parting?
No, it's all good. Copilot, always, everyday use, just use it and use it with confidence.
There you go.
Yeah.
Natalie?
Thanks everybody for being here, for learning from us. And if you want any follow-ups, go to that form at the QR and someone from the team will most certainly get back to you.
All right. Thanks much, all.
Thank you, everyone. A big thank you as well to Joshua, Satish, and Natalie for such an eye-opening discussion. Again, secure your spot early for the 2027 Microsoft 365 Community Conference happening May 4th through 6th in Las Vegas by visiting nextgen365events.com or scan the QR code on your screen. Keep building success with the ideas you've gained here. See you all at our next event on June 25th. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.